guys, this is Atul from the Practical Tech Solution. So again today we are come up with a very interesting problem. So what we have to do, let's see. So here you can see that we have to write a program to validate the IP4 address. So it's a very simple problem. Here we have to make sure that the certain conditions we need to write, like based on that. For example, let me tell you some of the conditions. That first condition is like the length should not be greater than 4, right? Let's say, for example, with a dot, there is a separation of the numbers here. So this length should not be exceed 4. So it means that how many parts are there? So 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this is going to be my valid. Second thing, the number should not be greater than from 0 to 255. It needs to be in between that only. So that is the second condition. Okay. And third, the whatever the part we are seeing here in the IP address, that should not start with a 0. Okay, then that is also called as an invalid IP address. So we are going to work on all these conditions in order to find out, like, okay, which is going to be the valid IP address and which is going to be the invalid IP address. So let's start. So here, let me write one function as a public. And here I'm going to make this one as a static only, so that I can call it without having an object. So it is going to return me, we can return some true, false, or 0, 1, like that we can do that. So let's say I'm going to return 1, 0. So int, and I'm going to check that is valid. Okay, and here I'm going to pass that IP address. Okay, so now here the very first thing I'm going to check that whether this is having the 4 parts of this IP address is having the 4 parts or not. So how I'm going to check that? So simply what I'm going to do, see, based on here, what should I do? Yes, so here I'm going to write, like, let's say I'm going to create one array as a part is equals to str dot, and I'm going to split based on the I'm going to write so here I'm going to write, like, I have to pass the regular expression. So I'm going to write it like, if it is a dot, then it is going to be based on this delimiter I want to separate it. So here, now I'm going to check that if the part dot length. Okay. So here what we are going to do, we are going to write all the invalid conditions. If it is not equals to 4, okay, then in that case, what should I do? I should return 0. Okay. Similarly, I'm going to check for another condition. If this is going to have a leading 0. So what I'm going to write, like, if has one function I'm going to create as a leading 0. And here I'm going to send the part. Here, if it is returning me as a true, then what I'm going to do, I'm going to return 0. So it should not start with a 0, right? So I have to create this function. So let's say create a one function. Let's check that where it has been created. Okay, so here, so what we can do is, like, it's very simple. Here, what we can do, let's iterate through the loop, this array. So for int I is equals to 0, I less than part dot length, okay, then I plus plus. And here I'm going to check that if the part of I, because I have to check the first only, so that dot char at of 0 if it is equals to 0, okay, if it is equals to 0, then in that case, what should I do? I will return true. Otherwise, what should I do? I'm going to return false. Okay. So next is what we are going to do. So here we already have checked that if the IP address is having the leading 0 in the this IP address. If it is having the leading 0, then it means again it's an invalid IP address. And the last thing which I'm going to check is like the value needs to be between the 0 to 255, right? So here I'm going to write like for int I is equals to 0, I less than path dot length. Okay, and now here I plus plus, and now here what I'm going to do, I'm going to first convert it into the integer dot parse int, and here we are going to send part of I, and this is going to be stored inside the one variable of type integer. Now I have to check that. What I have to check that if the value of the data, if it is less than or equals to 0, and if the value data is greater than equals to 255. In that case, again, what I will do, I will just return 0, because that is also not valid one. And at the end, if all these conditions are not going to work, then simply I'm going to return 1, like this. So now let's check that. Here, we are going to call that function since it is returning. So what we can do is like system.out.println is valid, and here I'm going to send IP1. So if the value is coming as a 1, then it means it is a valid one, otherwise it's a invalid one, right? So here let me run this code. Save it and run the code. So we are getting 1. So it means it is a valid one. Now, if I'm going to check for the another also, so it needs to give me the invalid one. So is valid. So I need to show that no, it is not a valid. So I'm going to return as a 0 only. That's what we are returning. So now again, save it and run the code. So we are getting 0. So here you can see this, we have checked only the 3 conditions. Like first, the length of that it needs to be 4, okay, separated by the dot. Then the whatever string we are checking, so it should not be needs to have the leading 0. And third one, the value needs to be between 0 to 255. So these are the conditions. If this condition is not going to be fulfilled, then in that case, what should I tell? That it's a invalid IP address. So hope you guys got understand the concept. See you in another day. Thank you.